Every week, the NFL hands us storylines, but rarely does a single weekend feel like a compressed highlight film of the sport's very best. Week 4 was one of those weekends. Plays that looked impossible at first glance unfolded into moments of razor-sharp execution. Players who seemed ordinary turned mythic in a single snap. You think you've seen it all, but then you keep watching, and therefore you witness greatness being made. Stay with me through every entry because these moments reveal mechanics, mentality, and the small decisions that separate ordinary plays from history-making ones. Number 10. The Phantom Spin. The Titans faced third and short against an elite defensive front that had been stuffing the box all game. The call looked simple, but Derrick Henry did something you rarely see from a power back. He planted on his outside foot, spun completely, and exploited a seam opened by a misstep from the linebacker. Therefore, a play designed for 2 yards turned into a 48-yard breakout that flipped the field. But the nuance matters. The offensive lineman on the left tore his man to the second level, opening a sliver of daylight that Henry exploited with perfect balance. Film shows how Henry's hips snapped through the defender's reach, and therefore what looked like improvisation was actually textbook leverage and body control. Announcers caught a stunned silence before the stadium erupted, and therefore that moment became organic theater that changed coaching notes for the week. Number 9. Rookie Sky High. MetLife Stadium's lights were bright, the stakes were prime time, and a rookie wide receiver got a moment designed to test every skill in his toolbox. Aaron Rodgers sensed coverage and adjusted, throwing a back shoulder fade that required perfect rhythm. The rookie rose, but 2 defenders closed the same airspace, and for a second the odds looked stacked against him. He contorted midair, clutched the ball to his chest, and managed to pull both toes down before impact. Therefore, the catch transformed a hopeful youth into a prime-time name. But watch his footwork pre-snap. A slight stutter step pulled the corner fractionally out of phase, and therefore the play was as much about anticipation and release technique as it was about vertical athleticism. Analysts will show this clip for weeks, while rookie coaching rooms mark the moment as evidence that practice mechanics matter under stadium pressure. Number 8. Goal line denial. In a low-scoring slugfest, the Giants staggered to the 1-yard line needing a touchdown. The play call was the shovel pass, an efficient, short-yardage option that moves the chains if you sell it right. Jamal Adams, however, flowed downhill like a guided missile. He read eyes, skipped a block with violent hands, and met the runner at waist level. Therefore, instead of conceding a game-tying score, the defense produced a stop that stole momentum and forced a field goal. But the stop's import went beyond one set. It altered play calling in subsequent drives as the opposing coordinator became less willing to trust short-yardage creativity. Therefore, the single defensive play rewired the opponent's late-game plan and showcased how one decisive tackle can reverberate across a matchup. Number 7. Mahomes defies physics. Kansas City's offense looked stalled when the pocket collapsed on a critical down. Patrick Mahomes, off balance and twisting, did something the highlight reels live for. He threw a cross-body missile that threaded a sliver of daylight into the receiver's hands. The throw was violent and precise, but it was also born of situational awareness. Mahomes knew the receiver would make a micro-adjustment to the window. Therefore, the throw didn't just make highlights, it reframed the narrative of the drive. But there was more. The receiver, anticipating pressure, subtly altered his route stem to create just enough separation, and therefore the 2 players' chemistry, practice turned into intuition, produced a play that looked impossible on first watch, but was the product of decades of repetition. Number 6. Waddle's blazing burst. A designed slant is hardly cinematic until Jalen Waddle turns it into one. He caught the ball in tight space, but once he split through the second level, he uncorked top-end speed and left the nearest safety in a cartoon blur. Therefore, a 5-yard concept played out like an 80-yard sprint and put his team on the board with a play that broke the opposing defense's spirit. But dissecting that burst shows micro-advantages. Waddle's pre-snap alignment and foot placement at the break created a narrow lane that allowed his hips to open quickly, and therefore coaches will clip this play as a primer on how to build simple concepts around elite speed. Because speed executed at the right angle multiplies the entire offense's threat list. Number 5. Browning's backup magic. Cincinnati's sideline was tense. Joe Burrow watched from a boot, but the Bengals' offense still needed life. Jake Browning took the snaps with quiet confidence, but the Dialgers dialed pressure and smelled a chance to force turnovers. Browning absorbed the rush, pump fake to freeze a linebacker, and while sprinting, he uncorked a 45-yard strike that split the sideline and found a receiver who managed to get both feet down. Therefore, the catch preserved the drive and kept the Bengals' comeback narrative alive. But the impact went deeper. Browning's poise steadied a locker room that needed a reason to believe, and teammates rallied around him as if he carried Burrow's calm in his back pocket. Coaches praised his preparation. Every scout team rep mattered, and therefore the moment was a case study in being ready when opportunity knocks. Number 4, Sideline Symphony. Philadelphia lined up for 3rd and long with the corner route as the designed answer. Jalen Hurts delivered the ball that lived in a sliver of air, but A.J. Brown had to manufacture space with body control and timing. He extended one massive hand, secured the football, and dragged both feet just before his body carried him out of bounds. Therefore, the conversion kept the drive alive and eventually produced points that decided the game. But the technical beauty of the throw matters. The quarterback's placement removed reaction time for the defender and gave Brown the tiny fraction he needed, and therefore the play will be replayed by coaches showing how a millimeter of placement can influence outcomes in clutch moments. Number 3, Alexander's pick 6. Green Bay trailed late in the 4th when Jair Alexander made a play that rewired the scoreboard. He read the quarterback's eyes, jumped the throwing lane, and returned the interception 65 yards for a touchdown. Therefore, the Packers reversed momentum in a single heartbeat and stunned the opposition. But the pick 6 wasn't luck. Alexander's preparation, film study, and pattern recognition all converged. He anticipated the release point by recognizing the QB's shoulder shift, and therefore the play became a textbook example for defensive backs of how study and instinct combine into a game-changing turnover. Young defenders will rewatch this clip because it encapsulates the repeatable process behind sudden brilliance. Number 2, Stroud's Hail Mary miracle. Time expired in the first half, and most expected a conservative keeper, but Houston's rookie quarterback launched a 63-yard moonshot that sailed into chaos. Tight end Dalton Schultz positioned himself perfectly between two defenders, rose above the melee, and cradled the ball as he hit the ground in the end zone. Therefore, the momentum swing was seismic. Locker rooms quieted, and commentators scrambled for superlatives. But even a Hail Mary relies on structure. Schultz's spacing, his hands, and his veteran experience gave him the edge, and therefore the play proved that last-second theatrics still reward fundamentals and positioning, rather than pure chance. Number 1, Jefferson's impossible grab. The Vikings stood on 4th and long with the stadium hanging on a single breath. Kirk Cousins lofted the ball into a tight window where a cornerback was perfectly positioned, but Justin Jefferson adjusted midair, extended a single hand, and pinned the ball while falling backwards. Therefore, the Vikings extended the drive, the crowd erupted, and the highlight instantly joined the pantheon of great NFL moments. But the catch's legacy goes beyond one game. Jefferson combined elite timing, spatial awareness, and hands to produce a moment that will be assigned to greatest catches lists for years to come. Analysts will frame the clip as a study in body control under duress, and therefore it becomes both entertainment and instruction for the next generation.